Let's have some fun. Okay, today you're going to need a block. If you don't have a block, I can lend you one. I brought a couple extra. So if you think you don't need one, you're wrong. So, you don't? Okay. You're a man, you may need to. Okay. Good. Okay. One quick thing before we start. Most of you know where your sacrum is, but your sacrum is a triangular bone. It's actually 5 pieces of your vertebrae that fused together when you were in your 20s. And it hangs in between the wings of your pelvis. Your pelvis comes up like this, and your sacrum comes down in the middle. It's kind of a triangular shape. That is where all the weight from your spine comes in to your pelvis. It comes straight down, and then the sacrum distributes it to each side of your pelvis, and from there down into your femurs, and eventually down into your feet. But anyway, we're going to be doing a supported bridge. So, not meaning to turn my back on you, it's really important that when you put a block underneath your sacrum, that you get it on your sacrum. So you don't want to put a block in up here where that's on your lumbar spine, because your spine doesn't bend. You'll hurt the joints, the discs in between the vertebrae. And you don't want it too low, because then the weight doesn't come directly into your sacrum. You want it right there. And from then, it's basically at the top of your pants coming down. So if you need to know where it is, check with the man. Now, I will come around and check. That's one way that that is a real important thing. So, okay, we're going to start today in the pose of a child. So I'd like you to, and before I forget, I want to thank Rita for doing the classes for the last couple of weeks. And we have a wedding of one of our daughters next week in the Dominican Republic. So we're leaving on Wednesday, and Rita's going to sub both the Tuesday and the Wednesday class again for me. So anyway, so come into the pose of a child. And pose of a child, you spread your knees wide. Now you can use the width of your mat, or you can spread out even farther. I like to come out a little bit farther. And then bring your hips back on top of your heels. Your big toes are touching or attempting to touch. And I like to start right here so that my butt knows where it really wants to be. And then just walk your hands forward, and your hips are going to rise. There's no way to keep them down unless I come over and stand on you. But walk your hands forward, your head will come down towards the mat. And if your head doesn't come to the mat, you can always put a block underneath your head or underneath your collarbones, or a towel. Drop your hips as much as you can. Take a deep cleansing breath in through your nose and exhale it out through your nose. And another in through your nose, out through your nose,
And let your breath come to its own natural rhythm, in and out through your nose. Now, breathing through your nose is extremely important because your nose cleans the air, your sinuses extract viruses, bacteria, pollen, and other dirt in the air. Your nasal sign cavities begin to moisten your breath and warm the air, getting it close to your body temperature before it finally goes down into your lungs. If you breathe through your mouth, and when you're exercising really hard, you have to increase the total amount of oxygen that you are able to take in. But under normal circumstances, breathing in and out through your nose is much more efficient. The air pressure inside your lungs when you're breathing through your nose is about 25% greater than breathing in through your mouth. That's because there's a closed system, and that air has to make its way through your nasal cavities. Keep breathing with your own natural breath. Observe it. Can you feel that air rushing past your lips, your upper lip? Which parts of your lungs get filled up first? Allow your belly to fall towards the floor. This pose is a bit of a groin opener and a hip opener. And you're also lengthening your spine. Begin to deepen your breath. On your next inhale, lift your hips, walk your hands back, come back into table. And from here, do a few cat-cows. Get your wrist creases directly below your shoulders, your knees directly below your hips. And on an inhale, your belly drops, your chest comes forward. And your sit bones lift and separate. And then exhale, you round your spine, tuck your tailbone under, and your chin comes towards your chest. And then continue breathing in to cow pose and breathing out to cat. You're moving your spine, drawing more synovial fluid into the joints, the same as your shoulder sockets and your hip sockets, giving them a little more flexibility and a little bit more lubrication. And the next time you come to center pause, from here, bring your right arm out, level with the floor, and then inhale, lift up. And on your exhale, bring that right hand behind the left wrist, threading the needle way off to the left. And then come down onto your right shoulder, maybe your right cheek. Your palm is up towards the ceiling. The palm of your right hand, that is. Feel the twist in your spine. Feel the extension on your right shoulder. Notice your core. Now you can stay here. There's a slight modification you may want to do. You can come up onto your left fingertips like a crab and walk your hand way far forward towards the far wall. Now open up your armpit with your left arm. And then just relax. The way Yin works is you stretch into a pose, maybe 70% of your maximum stretch, and then you become still. And when you become still, your body realizes that you're not going to be drawing on those muscles very soon. So your muscles will begin to soften. And as your muscles soften, the tension from your body position gets transferred into your fascia, the coverings of your muscles, that connective tissue that links everything together. And that tension into your fascia stimulates that fascia, attracting stem cells that you're producing. And those stem cells eventually will come and lengthen your fascia and create more space inside your body for your muscles. That more space gives you more flexibility and more mobility. On an exhale, bring your left hand back next to your face. And on an inhale, push the floor away, lifting your chest, retrieving your right arm out and up. And then bring it back down on the mat. We'll do a couple more cat-cows. And notice how different this feels. Throughout today's practice, observe your body. Notice how one side is different than the other. The next time you come to center, pause. From here, lift your right foot up and back and step that foot on the back wall. Really push that heel away, stretching your hamstrings. And then on an exhale, bring that right foot up next to your right pinky finger. And those of you who know me know that this is not my favorite pose. You can walk that left knee back maybe an inch or so, coming into dragon. Now you can use a block if you want, 2 blocks. You can even come up onto your right knee with your hands. This is dragon. And there are lots of options here. If you want, you can overstep your dragon by bringing your knee maybe in line with your big toes down below, and you get a nice stretch on your calf and your Achilles tendon. You're feeling this a lot right in your groins. It's not your groin actually, it's your hip flexors, your psoas. On the left is being extended, really straight. And on your right, it's being flexed a lot. But this pose, you're trying to drop your hips towards the mat. I think you have to be a 20-year-old woman in order to be able to get your hips to the mat.
So I have a long way to go. But find that stretch that's right for you, and then just pause there and soften. The trick in Yin is to find a way to help your body to soften. You can stay here if you wish, or you can modify by bringing your hands to the mat. If you're overstepped, just adjust your foot so that your heel is directly underneath your knee. Your left knee can stay where it is. Coming into low flying dragon, you can walk your hands forward and come down onto your elbows. Or maybe you want to do a wandering dragon and just walk your hands off to the left side of your mat. This will open up your right hip flexors, your iliacus muscle. That muscle attaches to the top of your right femur, comes across the front of your hip crease, and goes into the big wing of your pelvis. It's really hard to feel where it's coming from. Now you have an option. You can always come down onto an elbow, on top of a block if you need to raise the floor. And sometimes your body will repel or react and want to get away. Be compassionate. Just back up. Sometimes your body will soften and you can go a little farther. Be aware and take that extra 1/8 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch. Yin is not a static practice. It changes from breath to breath. Begin to deepen your breath. Walk your hands back to center. Then walk your hands towards your left knee until you can release that right leg back to meet the left. Hit the table, you can do some cat-cows. You can make some big circles with your hips if that works for you. Or you can curl your toes under and lift your hips up and back into downward facing dog. And walk out your dog. And then gently bring your knees back down to the mat. And just lean back and bring your hips on top of your heels. Not even Priscilla knew that this one was coming. We're going to do a left half saddle. So a saddle pose, you can stay like this. This is also known as hero in Hatha. But if you can get deeper, you can do. Half saddle is going to be the right leg coming forward. So lean over onto your right side. Have a block or a towel available. Maybe place it underneath your right hip. And maybe you can take your left heel farther away from your hip.
You can feel this in your quads here on the left. And maybe, if you did that 6 miles with me this morning, your quads are screaming at you. Well, you can use your thumbs just to massage, or even just run your hands over that quad. Get it to be a little bit more comfortable. And then when you're able, you can bring your hands behind your hips. From here, now you can be sitting up on a block too. Take one of the blocks right underneath your sit bone. Or two, yeah, perfect. That's good. From here, tuck your tailbone under. Okay, that kind of pushes your back backward because you've tilted your pelvis. From here, maybe you can come down onto your elbow, but don't be too bold. If this is too much for your quads, don't do it. If it's too much on your knee, don't do it. Sitting up is good. It took me about 3 years before I was able to even think about doing this pose. And then rise back up. Roll on to your right hip. Free up that left leg, bring it out to the front of the mat. Remove any blocks or towels that you might have behind you. Bring your hands behind your hips. Push your feet towards the front of the mat. Push your heels away, and then wave your feet. This will rotate your femurs in your hip socket. And then come down onto your elbows. Come all the way down onto your back. Raise your arms up towards the ceiling. Then rotate them towards the wall beyond your head. And stretch from your heels to your palms. From your toes to your fingers. Spread your toes and fingers and wiggle them. And then just come down onto the mat. Just relax. From here, we're going to do a left banana. So the only rule in banana is that your hips cannot move. They're super glued to your mat. So begin by scooching your head and shoulders off towards the left side of your mat. You don't have to come very far. This pose magnifies itself very quickly. And then, again, keeping your hips on the mat, walk your feet off to the left side. You can feel a nice stretch along the right side of your body, all the way from your ankle up to your wrist. Breathe into that side body. Maybe start up at your armpit and breathe into that right armpit. One of the cues I give often here is to breathe deeply with your diaphragm to push your organs out from underneath your rib cage. That's because my organs want to cramp up when you get confined like this in this pose, or in many poses like this. So by breathing deeply, you can push your organs away, and then they come back and their mood is better. Now you can grab onto that right wrist with your left hand and just push that left hand away so that it stretches longer. And if you'd like to intensify this a little bit more, you can always lift that right foot up a couple of inches and place the right foot over the top of your left ankle. And then lower down with 2 straight legs. Notice if your right hip is climbed up off of the mat. This is a pretty intense pose. You can always back up. Soften your belly here. Breathe into wherever those sensations are greatest. And notice how your sensations migrate. They might start at a hip or at your armpit. And then it begins to radiate out. Help that energy go by breathing into it. With practice, you'll be able to direct your blood to specific body parts to bring more oxygen to those cells that need it most. Those are the ones that are making themselves known through sensation. And remember, all pain is bad. Pain is a warning that you're about to cause an injury. So always avoid that. Begin to deepen your breath. On your next exhale, uncross your legs and walk your feet back to center. Carefully scooch your shoulders and your head back to center. And then using both hands helping each other, return to the front of your body. On an inhale, bend your knees, walk your footprints up towards your sit bones. And draw your knees into your chest, give yourself a squeeze. Push your hips away and rock from left to right. Or make some circles on the ceiling with your knees. Make sure you go the opposite direction because that engages different muscles. And the next pose we're going to do starts in sitting up. So just cross your ankles and begin to rock forwards and backwards. You can rock all the way up, or if it's easier for you, just to roll onto one side, roll onto your right side, and use your left hand to push the chair away. We're here with Dragonfly. Now, Dragonfly is a straddle, and if you have tight hamstrings like I do, you're probably going to want to use a block or maybe 2. That will do 2 things for you. One is it gets your hips up and it allows gravity to be a little more effective. And the other is if you move your sit bones to the front edge of the block so that almost all your weight's on the front edge, your pelvis will tip forward. And in order to do a forward fold, your pelvis must tip forward. So from here, sit up straight, lift the crown of your head up towards the ceiling. And then begin to walk your hands forward. Drawing your collarbones towards the front of the mat. And the crown of your head towards the far wall. And when your body asks you to pause, pause. Notice where the sensations are. This pose is a groin opener, but it's also a hamstring opener and hip opener. Now you can play with this, maybe just release your feet. Maybe your feet can fall forward and see what that does. Might not do anything for you, but it might feel good because it engages a different part of your leg. If you can tell that your shoulders are bunched up closer to your ears, maybe just rotate your palms towards the ceiling and draw your elbows in towards your core. Lower your shoulder blades down. Inhale, come up halfway. And exhale, forward fold again. And just push your collarbones forward. And then let your head just drop forward. And notice which parts of your legs are being engaged the most. The targets are your hamstrings, your groins, and your spine. If it becomes pretty easy, modify. Go a little bit farther. Begin to deepen your breath. On your next inhale, raise your chest back up. Use your hands to help your legs come back onto your mat. If you're on a block, carefully remove it. Bring your hands behind your hips. Place your footprints on the mat. And notice how your hips feel before you do anything. And then slowly windshield wiper your knees. Which parts of your legs need this stretch the most? And the next time you come to center pause, straighten out your legs again. Come down onto your elbows, all the way down onto your back. Bend your knees and bring your footprints next to your hips. We're coming into bridge, a supported bridge. And this is where you're going to use your block. Now, if you have a back issue, you don't need to use a block. But there are 3 different dimensions. And you can insert the block under your sacrum the highest way you can. But to begin with, just place your palms on the mat, next to your hips, tuck your tailbone under, and on an inhale, lift up your hips towards the ceiling. And take a few breaths here. Isometrically pull your heels towards your shoulders. Maybe you can detect your knees are falling outward or inward. Let's just experiment for a moment. From here, with your hips up in the air, maybe draw your knees outward. See where you feel that. And then draw your knees toward each other. You probably can't even get them to touch without moving your feet. And then on an exhale, lower all the way back down. Grab your block. Select a height that seems appropriate. You can always change it. And on an inhale, tuck your tailbone, lift up, place the block underneath your sacrum, and carefully lower that down. Now maybe rock your hips a little bit left and right. Make sure that you're stable, that the block's not going to tip. And then if you're steady, maybe you want to walk your feet out towards the trunk of the mat. You can keep your footprints on the mat, or you can bring your heels down on the mat. What you're doing is you're stretching out your spine. You're stretching your core. Maybe just bring your hands up and place your hands on your hip creases. Now, underneath your hands, you can feel a little bit closer to your groin, but you can feel some big muscles there. Those are your psoas, that's closer to your pubic bone, and then your iliacus, which is a little bit farther away. Those are your two main hip flexors. If you'd like to intensify this pose a little bit, maybe raise your hands up towards the ceiling. Rotate them down onto the floor beyond your head. And find a way to get the floor to support your hands. You don't want to be cantilevered up in the air. Because if you have any muscles that are working hard, bouncing, other muscles are going to be empathetic and they won't release. And you won't get the most benefit from this pose. Soften your lower belly. Begin to deepen your breath. On your next inhale, bring your hands back down next to your hips. Walk your feet back up towards your sit bones. And on an inhale, lift your hips up, remove the block, and lower back down. Draw your knees into your chest. Give yourself a squeeze. Either rock from left to right or circles. And then release one leg out to the front of the mat. And then the other. Bring your arms towards the wall beyond your head and stretch again from your heels to your palms, your toes to your fingers, and then just soften into your mat. I'm going to do banana on the right side this time. So from here, Scoot your head and shoulders to the right side of your mat. And again, doesn't have to be a long way. Keeping your hips exactly where they are. Walk your feet over to the right side of the mat. Grab your left wrist with your right hand and push that hand away. Feeling that stretch. Notice where the sensations are. And if they're not where you expected, ask yourself why. And if you'd like to intensify this, maybe lift that left foot up a couple of inches. Cross that leg over the top of your right ankle. And then just sink down into the mat. Find support for your arms. Your arms can drop down to the floor. You can use a block if your arms don't reach the floor. That's not cheating. That is being a smart yogi. Soften your lower belly. Soften your glutes. Soften your jaws. And observe your body as it responds. Notice how this side is different than the other. Each side is different because it's had a different history. If you're dominant right side, you're going to be stiffer and stronger on that side. Likewise with the left. On your next exhale, uncross your legs. Walk them back to the center. Scoot your head and shoulders back to center. And then bring your arms back to the front of your body. Walk your footprints up towards your sit bones. Throw one knee into your chest, give yourself a squeeze. And then the other. And rock from one side to the other. We'll be coming up into a seated position to start the next pose. So you can get there however you wish. You roll to your side. Come upward, rock and roll. And on this side here, our next pose is going to be half saddle on the right, meaning that there'll be your right leg that gets underneath you. So you can just lean over onto your left side, bend that right knee, and bring that foot back, either right underneath your hip or off to the side. And if you're kind of tilted over towards the side like I am, chin yourself up with a towel or a block. That's why you have them. And believe me, every day that you do a pose, it will be different. So your right quad is one of the main targets here, which you probably are feeling quite a bit now. Don't forget, you can massage. Your right foot is really being extended, which is great for the health of your foot. From here, you can bring your hands behind your hips and then tuck your tailbone under again. See what that does. Now, another option that you can do, you may enjoy this, you may run out of the room screaming, but you can bend that left knee and bring that foot onto the mat. Maybe that does something, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you want to walk that foot off to the left. And notice what happens to your quads on the right if you do. Your whole body is connected. But don't think that because somebody else is doing something, you have to. You're the only one that knows what's going on inside your body. You want to come down onto your elbows or even all the way down onto your back? Go ahead. But you're seeking softness here. You don't care what the pose looks like. This pose is really good for the health of your sacrum because it allows your sacrum to move slightly in between the sides of your pelvis. That motion is called nutting. Like that's nuts. The other pose that is good is caterpillar or dragonfly. And then, not to overdo a good thing, and sit back up, come onto your left hip, and this time we're going to roll over and come into table. Nobody's watching, so you don't have to worry about how silly you look. And do some cat-cows here. Maybe you want to lift one leg and then the other, straighten them out, maybe twisting. And the next time you come to center pause, from here, lift your left foot up and back, step on the back wall. The foot is flexed, your toes are facing down. And then on an exhale, bring that left foot up next to your left pinky. And we're coming into dragon on the left. Now you have the same options as before. You can have your hands down, make this into high flying dragon. You can walk that foot out to the left a little bit, give yourself a little more space. You can come up to baby dragon. But the important thing is to drop your hips. And maybe this side is different. Maybe that right knee can go back a little bit. Maybe you want to use blocks to support yourself while you test it. And if you sense yourself being twisted off to the right, just draw that left hip back. Although this is a hip flexor stretch, you're getting other stretches here. And maybe it would be interesting. Okay, I have a bunch of new people here. So you haven't heard the results of a clinical study that my instructor, my favorite instructor in Michigan told me. That if your eyes are closed, it's been clinically proven that nobody can see you. So maybe you can just reach around with your left hand and feel your hip socket and the muscles around it, and then feel your glutes. I bet you never thought your glutes felt that way. And just the act of touching your glutes softens them. You're giving them permission. That's a trick to remember. And then you can stay here upright if you wish, or you can bring your hands to the mat and then make this into a low-flying dragon or a wandering dragon coming off to the right. Or get the support of a block or two underneath your elbows. But notice where you feel this. How different this is than when you were straight ahead. Because this is an entirely different muscle that you're targeting. If you're wandering or wondering. Begin to deepen your breath. On your next inhale, straighten out your arms, lifting your chest high. Walk your hands back towards your right knee until you can release that left back to meet the right. Do a few cat-cows. Make any modifications or other movements that is going to make your body feel better. These counter poses are way more important than you probably realize. But they allow your blood to come back to normalcy, allow your muscles to come back to normal. So you can go to down dog. And then I'll meet you back in table. Then on your next inhale, bring your left arm out to the side and then continue to raise it up. And then on the exhale, thread the needle with that left hand behind the right wrist, way off to the right side of the mat. Bringing your shoulder down, your cheek down. Just soften to the mat. Again, you have options. You can walk that right arm forward, And bring that right arm behind your back. Soften your belly. Soften your cheeks. Soften your glutes. This twist is great for your spine. Allows your spine to work out any kinks that it encountered during the other poses. It allows each vertebra to spin on the disc. Begin to bring your right hand back next to your face. And your next inhale, push the floor away, lifting your chest, releasing the left arm out and up. And return back to earth. Do a couple more cat-cows. And the next time you come to center pause, from here, lower your favorite hip down onto the mat. Swing your feet around to the front of your mat. Pull your hands behind your hips. Come down onto your elbows and all the way down. Bring your hands up towards the ceiling. Rotate towards the far wall. One more time. Spread your fingers and your toes and stretch them away from each other. Push your heels away from your palms. And then bring your arms either back by your side or out from your side. Anywhere that feels comfortable for Shavasana. You can walk your feet farther apart or closer together. Roll your hips left to right. Find that perfect spot on your mat to settle your sacrum. Gently roll your head from left to right. Finding a place for that bony skull to rest. Take a deep cleansing breath in through your nose and exhale it out through your nose. Take another cleansing breath in through your nose, out through your nose, and take rest. I'm going to wait a couple more weeks before I do any adjusting. Begin to deepen your breath. Bring your awareness back into your space. Bring movement to your fingers and to your toes, your wrists, and to your ankles. Gently roll your head from left to right. And when you're ready, bend your knees and walk your footprints up towards your sit bones. Give yourself a squeeze. Either rock or make circles with your knees on the ceiling. And then the next time you come over on your right side, pause there for just a moment, using your right arm as a pillow. And do a quick body scan to detect any tension or stress that may still be lurking in your tissues, so that you can address that later this week. And then using the strength in your left hand, push the floor away, rise up to a seated position. Thank you for sharing your yoga practice with me this afternoon. You provide great motivation to me to teach more. I'm motivated by your dedication to your body's health through the practice of yoga. Take the compassion and empathy that you practice every time you step onto your mat with you, wherever you go, and share it with each person you might meet. Namaste.
Namaste.
My name is Clint, and this has been Yin Yoga. Thanks for coming.